Every time I ask a question, my voice is going to get higher. What's up, YouTube? Can you believe I made another build in Elden Ring for PvP and invasions? And the character is named after an Evilisian hero from Final Fantasy Tactics? I'm Saint Riot! That's not a question. It's Thunder God Sid! Thunder God Sid is a character in Final Fantasy Tactics whom you acquire towards the end of the game, and if you put him in your party, the game is easy mode. It's just, he's so busted. He's so overpowered. But, he's supposed to be this, super badass, so, it makes sense that, he's super badass. He doesn't really throw lightning around in the game too much, but his name is Sidolphus Orlandu, and he's called Thunder God Sid. So I wanted to make a build that threw lightning around, similar to my Pyromancer, a strength build that throws fireballs. This is a dex build that throws lightning. And we're using the Sacred Relic sword, which I will talk about in just a moment. But first, I would like to point out that this should be fixed. This player is going to do waterfowl dance, and I parry it, and it just doesn't matter. He just said no. You did not parry me. Okay. I hope they fix that. You can just mash L2 and get parried, and it doesn't matter. It's pretty dumb. Anyway, here's a lightning bolt, just killing him in one hit. That's hilarious. It's Ancient Dragon Lightning Stake, and like I said, we're using the Golden Relic, Sacred Relic sword. And there are two types of people in this world. There's 2.5 types of people in this world. There are the people who say this weapon is busted because the Ash of War, Wave of Gold, is next to impossible to dodge reliably. And those people are correct. I would be one of those people. And then there's the group of people who say, well, this weapon should be really good. It's the weapon you get for beating the final boss. And I agree with those people too. And then the 2.5 type of person is the person who says, I would be okay with this janky Ash of War on this weapon being badass if you couldn't drop it for other players. The fact that you can drop this weapon for other players means they don't have to earn it, so they didn't necessarily deserve to have this janky Ash of War. I hope at some point they find a way to improve Wave of Gold in a way that makes it easier to understand when you're supposed to dodge it. You can get good at dodging it. Anytime I bring up like an issue in Elden Ring PvP, there's always someone who's like, actually, I've never experienced any problem with it ever at all, and must just be a you thing. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's bad. If there's like any lag or latency at all, it can be impossible to determine when you're supposed to dodge Wave of Gold, and it's very annoying. But this weapon is perfect for this build, and so I'm not gonna just sit here and apologize for 12 minutes and 33 seconds while I use it. That's not gonna happen. It's a Dex Faith Greatsword on a build that has 14 strength, which is Vagabond starter strength, and this thing requires 14 strength to use. It has decent scaling in Dex, and it has good scaling in Faith. It is quite possibly the most perfect weapon for this build. Going back to Orlandu from Final Fantasy Tactics, when he joins your party, he's using Excalibur, which is one of the strongest Knight class swords in the game. And what's more Excalibur-ish in the Elden Ring world than the sword of literal God who lived in the tree? Hard to think of anything. I play a little game with myself. And anytime I kill someone with Wave of Gold, I try and get my next kill with Lanasak's Glaive. which is a really fun spell. It just doesn't do a lot of damage. It does more damage if you hit people with the actual glaive part of the spell, and you know, I think it either hits twice or it just does a bunch of damage if you hit with the glaive. Because after the glaive, there's like some rolling lightning that rolls off of the attack afterwards. It's very cool, and I really like that spell. It's just not very good, but it is a lot of fun. Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike is, I mean, like, it'll one-shot people. It hits for a ton of damage. If you've got Godfrey Icon, it hits for even more damage than that. It can hit multiple times, and it does a bunch of damage, so it's really good. It's like a Death Lightning, but a little less roulette wheel-ish. We are using the Bolt of Grand Sax for the Lightning Bolt, Ancient Lightning Spear Toss thing. That's pretty cool. Hey, shout out to Rivers of Blood getting nerfed. Now I have to fight dual spears all the time instead of Rivers of Blood, and yeah, it's 2 spears is way better. It was always better than Rivers of Blood. You just didn't know it because not everyone used it, but now everyone's using it, so you'll know it. Again, I bring up, I'm only kind of half joking there. Like, at some point I was gonna have to get good at fighting against 2 spears until they nerf it. But you know, the time is now. Now it's just time to get good at fighting 2 spears instead of Rivers of Blood. But man, it's annoying. Lightning Spear is really good. It's fast. It does a lot of damage. You can charge it for more damage. Also, Godfrey Icon. Very cool spell. Honed Bolt is decent. Ancient Dragon Lightning Stake, Honed Bolt, and Lightning Strike. Don't use those spells if there's a roof over your head, because they just won't go off, as you just saw. If you're in an area where there's like a roof over your head, you know, stick with like Lanisax Glaive and Lightning Spear and spells like that. Spells that you actually throw as opposed to spells that come from above. If there's a roof over you and you call down lightning from above, the roof will absolutely mess that up. Yeah, worth remembering. I even tested it out to see if the lightning was doing damage up top. It's not. It just doesn't do anything. But yeah, the lightning spells are a lot of fun. They are a ton of fun, and they all look cool, which is nice. In other games by From Software, we would have some cool-looking spells, but they always sucked. They looked cool, but they didn't do damage. These spells look cool and do damage, which is great. Lanisax Glaive could probably stand just a slight buff, maybe. And the other one, the Lightning Stake, where you jump up in the air and throw a spear of lightning into the ground. That one could probably stand to be improved a little bit as well. Maybe the double stake version is much better. I'm not sure. I'll be honest, I didn't play with that one. Just because it cost more FP. It had higher requirements. And so I just kind of, you know, opted for the one lightning stake instead of the 2. But, you know, enemies in water, they take extra damage against lightning. And then there are actually 2 different types of lightning debuff. There's being wet, like if it's slightly raining, you take a debuff, you take more lightning damage. And then there's like being completely soaked, where you're fighting in water. And that's an even bigger debuff against lightning. And pyro builds that throw fireballs and do fire damage, there's so much water in this game that those builds sort of have that you have to consider that a downside. There's so much water in this game, and if you're wet, you don't take as much fire damage. Your fire absorption goes up. But the complete opposite with the lightning build, with you know, any side of like lightning damage is there's always water around, so everybody's constantly taking more lightning damage, which is pretty cool for this build. Not cool for my pyro build, pretty cool for this build, for the lightning build. But yeah, Build is a lot of fun. This is not a great build. It's not a great build. But it has the ability to just throw out 1,200, 1,500 damage. You know? It always has what boxing fans would call a puncher's chance. The build's not great, but the fact that it can, at any given time, just do 1,500 damage means that, you know, it's possible that this build win any fight that it finds itself in. Ancient Dragon's Lightning Spear. That's the name of the spell I was talking about. There's a version of that casts 2 spears instead of 1, but I didn't play around with that one. Anyway, yeah, not a great build, but as you'll see in this invasion here, I spawn in, and there's 3 people, and just from the get-go, from the start, they just chasing me down, doing everything, just trying to kill me. 2 spears, rivers of blood, gravity magic. Like, it's rough. This is a rough entrance into an invasion. Being chased by dual spears sucks. And this guy behind him has gravity magic. He can pull me back into the 2 spears. But this build is capable of just doing an insane amount of damage. So while it's not a great build, it is capable of winning just by virtue of the fact that it can pump out so much damage, which is probably true of a lot of builds in Elden Ring. But yeah, for this one especially. Now, interesting fact. For a lot of these invasions, my stats are not where they ended up at. I'm going to show the stats at the end of the video so that you can see them, but those stats are slightly different than the ones you're seeing here. The stats at the end of the video are better, I think. Originally, I had like 30 endurance, and I replaced that. I went down to 20 endurance and put on the Jar Seal Arsenal. And it gave me more points to mess around with. But, you know, everything you've just seen, very similar to this build right here. I just think this is slightly more efficient. This is a slightly more efficient version, I think. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Lightning. Later.